Hello everybody, Aaron from Victory Glass here to show you guys how the installation process goes of one of our new solid state pin banks into this beautiful 100W that we're going to install it in today. But first, before we get started, I'd like to show you guys the components that are included with our new solid state pin bank kits. The first item, of course, is the actual pin bank unit itself. This contains all of the sensors and electronics that actually control the majority of the functions. That's the actual pin bank board itself. This is the contact block, aka frog board, as it's commonly known as, hence the froggy. You'll see on the frog board there are two terminal strips. There's a 3-pin, a 3-wire, and a 2-wire. The 2-wire is where the connections will be made for the detection circuits. The other 3 positions on the other terminal strip are there just simply as wire storage. Those connections don't really matter. There are only two out of the five wires on the contact block are actually used. So therefore, we provide a place for you to stow the other 3 wires that are not used. The only 2 that really matter are A and B, the A side, B side selections. So that's the frog board. The next item that's included is the selection cable. This is the cable that contains the Jones plug, which plugs into the selection receiver, and the opposite end plugs into the pin bank unit itself. The next item is the power and wall box cable. So this cable has a Molex connector on one end and an 8-pin octal on the other end. So the Molex connector plugs into the pin bank control board itself. Then about halfway down the cable is our play control cable. We'll show you where that connects. Continuing down the cable is the 8-pin octal. This plugs into the 2050 socket on your selection receiver. It's used to not only power the pin bank itself, but also used to detect incoming pulses from your wall box if you have one. The last connector on the harness is a 2-pin plug, which is used when connecting a solid state pin bank to one of our solid state amplifiers as well. There's a separate little harness that we include for customers that have both the pin bank and the solid state amplifier, which is used to interconnect the two as well. One item that's included for models B, C, G, and W is a set of new mounting brackets. These brackets are used to secure the mechanism end cap, or end covers, and also the mechanism shroud of the magazine rack for, again, models B, C, G, and W. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's begin by removing, on this W, we will remove the mirrors from both sides of the mechanism. Next, we will remove the mechanism side covers, 3 screws on each side. Hold the mech side covers in. Oh, and the shroud wants to come with it, which is actually okay. We did previously remove these 2 screws from the mechanism end shroud as well. So then we can take it all off in one piece. That works too. Okay, we'll put this aside. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, next we're going to remove the original pin bank itself. We will start by removing the wire clamp that holds the mechanism cable, or sorry, the pin bank cable to the mechanism rail here. We'll remove one side completely, and the other side we will just loosen a few turns and swing him out of the way. Okay, so now this cable is nice and loose. Okay, next we're going to disconnect the two cables coming out of the pin bank. The small bayonet style connection is the play control. We were going to separate those two halves. And then we're also going to unplug the Jones plug from the selection receiver. There's a clip on both sides that you need to press in usually to get it to release out of the selection receiver. So now our pin bank is disconnected. We'll just let the wire dangle here for a short bit. Okay, next we're going to remove the actual pin bank unit itself. There are 4 screws, 2 on each side, securing the pin bank to the mechanism. So we will start by removing one screw completely. These screws may be straight blade or Phillips. It looks like these have actually been replaced with Phillips because I believe they were straight blade from the factory. So we'll start by removing one screw completely on each side, and then we'll remove the other ones, but we're going to kind of support it as we go here. Okay, I've got the one side out. I'm going to hold it with my arm to keep it up, and then we will do the same for the other side. Okay, so it's no longer being held by the mechanism bolts, by the pin bank bolts. Okay, so now what we need to do is slide the pin bank off one end of the contact block. And this machine happens to be right in the center, which isn't really ideal, but I think we'll still have enough room to slide it off the end here. No, not quite. So we'll have to pop the frog out like so. Okay, there. So it will slide out of the end. Now the old pin bank is removed and retired for good. So let's go ahead and put him aside. Okay, at this time we need to identify the 2 wires that are used to select A side and B side. You'll see there are 5 wires coming down to the contact block. 2 of them are connected to these little fingers in the center that face opposing each other. These are the 2 that we need to mark so we get them connected properly to the new frog board. The other 3 wires, which are connected to the perimeter terminals on the contact block, are not important. So we include with our pin bank kits 2 new colored zip ties. We have one red and one blue, and this will help you positively identify the wires later. The colors on these wires, as they've approached 70-ish years old or more, are kind of hard to read. So we will identify the 2 wires at this time. So the wire towards the left, we will put a red zip tie on. And the wire on the right, we will put a blue zip tie on. These will help identify them when we put them on the new frog board. So you'll see, again, these are the wires that are connected to these 2 fingers in the center, and they face each other. So the other 3 wires are kind of on the perimeter of the block. Those we're not worried about. So this outer wire here looks black. Again, you can't really tell as they age. The other 2 wires, one has a stripe, and the other wire, I can't tell what it was. Orange maybe. But anyway, those 3 we don't care about. The 2 that we are concerned with are the 2 that connect to the fingers in the center. Now we can go ahead and remove the wires from the contact block. We will just simply cut them off as close to the contact block as possible so we preserve as much of the wire as we can. And the last wire. And that's it. Our contact block can be put aside. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and strip about 1/4 inch of wire off of all 5 wires, even though we're only concerned really with 2 of them, the 2 with the cable ties. We're going to go ahead and strip them all back because again, the 3 that are not used are going to go into a Phoenix strip on the new frog block, frog contact block, just for storage. So we'll go ahead and strip all 5 wires. Okay, all 5 wires are stripped. Now we can go ahead and connect our new frog block. So as I mentioned earlier, the frog has 2 connections on it, one labeled A side, one labeled B side. Those are the 2 wires, or those are the 2 terminals that the wires that we previously marked with a zip tie will be connected to. So we'll connect them one at a time. The one that was on the left, that is the more red orangish wire, will connect to the A side terminal. So as to not lose track of it, we will leave that zip tie on there, slide it into the Phoenix terminal, and use a small straight blade to go ahead and tighten that one down. Okay, now we can go ahead and remove the zip tie. And we'll go ahead and do the same with the blue wire, which will of course connect to the B side terminal. And then we can go ahead and remove that zip tie next. Okay. Then the other 3 wires, as I had mentioned, will just go into the other Phoenix strip in no particular order. Again, they're really just there for storage, just to keep them out of trouble. Okay, that is all there is involved with connecting our new frog block. Okay, now next you'll use the 2 new included 632 screws. These are short little guys, they're about a 1/4 inch in length. So we'll use these 2 screws to fasten the frog block to the mechanism. You'll see there's 2 holes in the bracket that's already on there, and they simply line up with the threaded holes on the mechanism arm. Really shouldn't be much adjustment necessary at all. We'll just put those on and tighten them down. Okay, next we will go ahead and connect the 2 new included cables to the new Pinbank unit. You'll see there are 2 connectors. There's a 10-pin green connector and also an 8-pin black connector as well. So it's easiest to connect these before you install the Pinbank into the mechanism, or onto the mechanism. So on the bottom side of the Pinbank, you'll see the green connector that just simply locks into place. And on the opposite end, you will see the 8-pin black connector. This one slides in at a 45-degree angle. So it just slides in and locks like so. We will then grab the 4 new included number 10 screws and 4 washers. Okay, we can now go ahead and attach the Pinbank to the mechanism. You'll see I've already put 1 screw and washer in on that side and putting screw and washer in on the opposite side. We won't tighten them down yet. We'll just leave them fairly loose, a turn or 2 loose for the time being until we get all 4 screws in with washers. Now to align the Pinbank, it's relatively simple. We will start with it in the center position. Again, the holes are elongated, so we'll just kind of go ahead and start it in the center of the elongation. And that gives us a little adjustment if we need it, but it's not been very critical at all. It's much more forgiving than the original Pinbank was. Okay, so the Pinbank is now secured to the mechanism. Now at this point, we're going to want to go ahead and check our clearance of the front pickup eye. You'll see there's a pickup tube that goes down and hovers above the photo sensors on the lower circuit board. We want to have about an 1/8 inch gap. And the brackets vary slightly from our manufacturer, but they are aluminum, so they're very easy to tweak. So we'll just give it a little, there we go. That looks pretty good. Again, we want to be about an 1/8 inch gap off of that sensor. Okay. So now we'll go ahead and route our cables down through the mechanism down to the lower section of the jukebox. Now the larger cable we'll go ahead and put under the clamp in the same position that the original cable was in. We'll get that started here and go ahead and tighten the screws down. And then we will go ahead and use the included black zip ties to attach the other cable to route alongside the main cable. So this is fairly critical because it has to clear through the hole in the back of the or in the routed out section of the back of the cabinet. So we'll go ahead and put one at the very top, right directly above the clamp. We don't have to tighten it down too much, just enough to keep it snug. And then we'll put one right underneath it as well, so it clears through that routed out section in the cabinet in the back door once we put the door on later. Okay, there. So those are the only two locations that we're really concerned with. We'll turn those sideways and we will trim them off. Okay. We're almost done. Next, we need to connect the play control cable. So the play control cable is, again, this little bayonet style connector. The other half is already hanging here from before, from the factory harness. We simply push these two together and twist. Spring loaded, so you gotta kind of get a hold of it pretty well. There we go. Okay, twist and lock, easy enough. Then our 8-pin octo plug will plug into the 2050 socket of your selection receiver. So if you have a 2050 tube present, you will remove that. Now if you have one of our Juke Talk amplifiers, you will be receiving, again, a new cable to use in place of the in place of the cable that's shipped with your amplifier, because we're now using that 2050 socket to power the Pinbank. So there's a special adapter cable included. So this plugs into the 2050 socket that is usually used for your stepper on your selection receiver. Then the other connector, the Jones plug, plugs into the selection receiver where the original Pinbank was. And it's keyed, so it can only go in one way. So we'll line him up and okay, there we go. Well, let's go ahead and give it a try. Okay, let's go ahead and give it a try. The Pinbank is in, the power light is on the Pinbank. I think we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and try H3. Just like that, we're in business. Okay, now that everything is installed and tested and working, we're going to go ahead and install the brackets which support the mechanism end covers as well as the magazine shroud. You'll notice that the brackets are mirror image of each other, and they get installed as such, so this tab on the back is pointing or is towards the top, and the two tabs point towards each other like so. So we'll go ahead and start with the right side. I'll put the left down for right this moment, and we'll go ahead and loosen these two screws. And of course, I did turn the power back off for this operation. Okay, now the new screws will go through the bracket through the pin bank and into the mechanism. And again, we'll do one side at a time here just to keep our alignment in place if we've had to make any adjustments, which we usually don't. Okay, go ahead and tighten that down. And now we will do the other side. Pull the two screws out. And we'll tighten them all down nice. Okay, good. Okay, so now it's time to go ahead and reinstall our mechanism side covers. We'll start with just the the right side. And as we mentioned earlier, there are 3 screws per side. The 2 longer screws are used towards the forward, the front of the jukebox, and the 3rd shorter screw is for the rear hole that goes into the new bracket that we provide. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put the cover on the opposite side of the mechanism. And finally, we can reinstall the rear mechanism shroud cover. Okay, now that we've got the rear shroud back on the mechanism, we'll go ahead and tighten down the 2 screws. You'll note that we're going to be using the upper screw holes now and not the lower screw holes. Next, we'll reinstall the rear mirrors. Put the back door on and the job is complete, and your jukebox is ready to enjoy and should be much more reliable with our new solid state pin bank. Thanks for watching.